Let's talk chooches.
Chooch episode.
You better know, ladies and gents, that chooch is going to be said 100 times exactly.
I bet you break it. Boy, if
I
I
will.
could have a
I'll
counter.
probably say it more. Yeah, I mean, if Catherine was here, I would say, just please, Catherine, just slowly with your fingers,
Put your hands
count
up
on camera. Yeah,
the whole time.
I don't know. She's been very busy with a lot of stuff, so
She's doing cool
She
stuff.
does not have the time to count on her fingers for this whole show.
I don't think anybody really has that time.
Although I wish I could get someone to do that.
One day when we're making the big bucks.
But even if Catherine had time, she would
No,
not
of
do
course
that.
not.
I don't. Yeah.
One day we'll get a chooch counter. One day.
Exactly. One day, if Patreon does well enough, maybe we can get a chooch counter.
I can't wait. Oh, man.
Fingies crossed. We just need to get one of those like clickers that they use at like venues to know
that when you go to the anywhere now.
Yes.
Oh God.
The things that don't all and exist, which we could probably get them for cheap now, which I think is the thing. And then I just gotta every time one of us says chooch and see what our chooch count is. I could do a tally system, but I bet you I would lose track of it at a certain point when I'm getting really passionate about the chooch.
I'm gonna do it.
And then I'd be like, well, if I miss a couple, the whole thing is kaput.
Oh, I might do it. You'll see. You never know. I might get really, really ambitious during editing and be like, the final chooch count is.
Oh, that's true. We'll see. Maybe technology will make this easy for us.
Well, welcome back to Circus Stories, everybody.
Yeah.
It's a circus history podcast.
Welcome to it.
Yeah, I'm your host, Callie B.
And hello, it's me, Mark Arnauden.
And we're bringing you another totally tubular story from circus history.
This one is particularly tubular. I mean, I think it's going to be. I only know the subject matter, not the specifics.
Oh, and he's so excited. So.
I'm very excited. I've only been this excited perhaps on Seal Day and Clown Day. I mean, well, we've had a lot of good days.
Yeah, but those are pretty good.
It's hard to judge.
Solid.
But those are some of my top topics.
Top topics.
Which is surprisingly hard to say.
But of course, we got to bring you our circus word of the day.
You can't have it any other way.
And I'm going to let Mark guess what you think the actual definition is.
I like guessing.
So today's word is pie car.
Pie car. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a simple one. So this on circuses travel with caravans of vehicles, okay, and they've got different like carts or train cars or whatever way they're traveling. There's different carts that have each thing. And the pie one, what was it called again? The pie who?
Pie car.
The pie car is one, it's kind of in the middle back, and it looks like, so you picture in your head Cinderella's pumpkin cart, but now change the pumpkin to a cherry pie, and I'm talking the one with the like cross lace kind of like pie crust on top, so you can see the red in between, and there's always a little steam coming up, not because the car itself is hot, because inside they are making countless pies.
Wow.
Pies of all different type, because here's the thing with the pie cart, they have to make the pies really early in the morning so that they cool by the time the clowns need to hit other clowns in the face with these pies. They cannot be hot at the time of the show because that's dangerous, and we care about the safety of our performers.
So the pie car it's a place for circus employees to purchase food and drink after hours.
Oh, it's opposite time-wise of what I said.
Yeah, that's funny. And it's often can be found like on a circus train. So there's like the pie car is like the food car.
Okay.
It's slang for that.
Do you know how often pie is an option?
I don't know. It depends on the chef, I bet.
I would hope at least every pie cart has one pie a day.
I hope so. Or maybe it's just on the menu.
Yeah. Yeah, or they could make it ready to serve any day. Because otherwise, like if I was new and I came in and they're like, oh, the pie car is down there if you want to get food. And I'd be like, do I? And then I would go down there. And if they didn't have a pie option, I'd feel a little swindled.
Right? I agree.
I mean, I'd probably get with it eventually. But there would be a moment of just kind of like
right? No pie? Bullshit.
No pie in the pie cart? Come on. And it could be any type. It could be a meat pie too.
Maybe.
I would be down for that.
There you go.
Whatever you want to do as long as it's got pie crust involved.
Maybe they serve just meat pie, and that's why it's called the pie car, because it's easier.
I would do well.
I would excel at this atmosphere. So today's story, we're discussing some ways the circus travels.
Speaking of carts. Carts are cars.
And there's a variety of methods over the centuries that the circus has traveled, and namely in the American circus.
Broomsticks, roller skates, red wagons.
Dragons.
Ooh, that's a good one. The dragon circus is cool and very scary.
I've been rewatching Game of Thrones, that's why.
Oh my God. It's such a fun ride that ends in such a terrible ending.
I know. The whole time we just keep bitching about how bad this is going to end and how good it is.
I mean, you got to get it out of your system, and it's going to take everyone 10 years to get that ending out of their system because the show was so long.
Yeah, it's so good, and it's just such shit how it ends. We're just like, wow, this character
really
development is just for nothing. It's really for nothing.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's like basically just don't watch the last season, and you guys should just talk about what should have happened instead.
Yeah, and just all the ways it could have gone.
The real bummer of that is I feel like the actual things that happen are not so terrible, but it's just like all of them feel rushed and unearned. It's like you need to get there. You can't just switch a character's like MO on me.
Right? And they're like, we don't have the budget, so we can't.
And it's like, yes, you do. You guys just wanted to go to your dumb Star Wars project with you lost because you fumbled this so hard.
Which you didn't get, you fucking doodles.
Well, they also, I mean, I have so many opinions on this. They also just proved without a fraction of a doubt to me that the guys, the showrunners of that show, cannot actually write. What they can do is they know how to read a book that's already been done and find the cool moments to put on TV. That's what they were good at.
They can adapt, right?
Yes. They knew like, okay, this is a good moment to put on television. This moment we can let go. Mm-hmm. That's really all they did. And once they didn't have a book to follow and he just said like, all right, here are the broad strokes. They just rushed to those broad strokes and they clearly couldn't do the in-between work, you know? And then the show just like felt, oh my God, so frustrating.
Boy, you nailed it.
I've complained about this a lot.
Oh, you and Nick could just have a field day. Really.
I'm sure we would. And the bummer, much like politics, it would be a long conversation where we're both just like really frustrated and there's no way to fix it.
Right, and both heated and just like about the same thing though.
It's so yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with politics. It's like you basically just either disagree and then therefore you're both frustrated, or you agree but can't do anything about it.
And you're just like, cool.
You're like, we both, we have the right idea, but I'm mad that that's not what's going on.
So Dragon Circus would be sweet.
Oh my God. I mean, when you see what they can do with seals, just imagine what they could do with dragons.
Holy moly. All the rings.
So many rings. Rings, a lot of fire rings too, I'm sure.
Jumping through those. Insane.
Oh yeah. It'd be pretty good. Jump through us into the dragon's mouth. I mean, we could pontificate about Dragon Circus.
But the circus has used a variety of methods and then progressed like from a horse-drawn wagon to a much more efficient method of chooches, and kind of have stuck with the chooch over time, at least in American circus and in European circus.
It's the cutest way to travel.
It is the cutest, the chooches, otherwise known as trains for those not familiar with the chooch.
Yeah, we like to say chooch as in choo-choo train.
As in a choo-choo.
In case that is not immediately clear. But it's my favorite way to talk about trains.
Bobby Baccalari, this is his episode.
Whoa, what a good name. He's not from the past, is he?
Bobby Baccalari from Sopranos. This is for him.
Oh, yeah. See, I forgot because he doesn't like trains until like the last season. It's like a little extra thing.
I mean, he always likes them. He just never really goes for it.
But we as the audience don't know, which also, shout out to Bobby. He's like the only character in that whole show
the best.
That like is like consistently a good guy.
Not a murderer, really.
I mean, I think he murders like once, but only because Tony makes a whole point of like, you haven't murdered actually. And then he makes him
murder someone.
You gotta murder. But you can tell Bobby feels bad about it.
Yeah.
But every other character, they have moments where you're like, I kind of like them. And then they do or say something. And you're like, you actually suck. Yeah. And you kind of have this moment of like, I don't know how I feel. Like Tony is a great example of he says some really ignorant, terrible shit, but he's also really likes animals and is charming. And you're like, I don't know how to feel about you. But Bobby is just pretty good all the time. Yeah. I was so mad when Janice and Bobby got together because it's like she's so constantly terrible and Bobby's the only nice person on this show. He deserves someone nice.
The ZD. Oh, the ZD.
Fucking oh my God, he never should have been made.
I can't.
So mad at her.
Once circuses began to access the rails in their travel, this allowed them to cover much more ground and then perform in numerous cities as opposed to like a few here and there, creating like a snowball effect in their popularity.
Chooches equal more circus. Simple as that.
It's true, more circus. Right. So we're going to discuss how the circuses used the chooches and other methods to travel then and now. And there's so much to the travel that we can't cover it all in one episode, just like the ins and outs of what goes where and how many train cars or
chooch technology, railway jargon. Exactly. It's a lot. Although there is something I do want to ask the listeners for because I'm too lazy to do it myself. Can you guys keep a chooch counter? And let us know how many times we say the word chooch, because I think it's going to be 100 plus.
Oh, it'll definitely break 100.
It'll be, I don't know how long this episode's going to be because we're at the beginning of
Terrifyingly
it. But like, oh my God, we're also going to look for any opportunity to say chooch because use it in your regular life. It's a very fun word. I don't know how often you talk about trains. But those of you who maybe take trains to work, tell your family you're going to hop on the chooch. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. If you take the subway, it's almost a chooch.
That's an underground chooch, so feel free to call it such.
It's on a rail. It's a chooch. Right?
If it rides on a rail, that's a chooch, baby.
That's a chooch, baby. So this episode's basically like it's a Circus Travel 101 because there's a variety of methods now that are, train, but then also smaller shows travel by like semis that for their equipment and then their trailers and a variety of things. Or some circuses in Europe have to fly to place or just stationary.
Man, a circus plane, that's gonna be a fun way to fly.
Right? So one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known circuses continue to travel by train in the modern age through all the progression in modern travel, moving town to town by train, and that proved to be the most successful mode of transportation for Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. So the big guys.
The big guys use the chooch.
Right. And they became this circus giant themselves from expanding to that. They first purchased 11 train cars of their own.
It's a lot of train cars, especially, when did they do that? That was like the 18-somethings?
1890, yeah. So they bought from Adam Forepaugh those 11 train cars.
Forepaugh, he comes back again.
Right before he died.
Yeah, he's like, I'm feeling a little bit ill. Perhaps I could sell some of these train cars, these chooch cars. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God, how dare you?
I almost let one slip.
So they were able to expand from their horse and wagon, operation to getting on the rails. And that really was the turning point.
Well, a train is at least 3 times faster than a horse. Let's be real.
Oh, yeah. And they were able to expand just their operation in general as far as like getting more performers and more equipment. And totally what you're saying is like travel more ground, So that was a catalyst.
Cover more ground. And you can pull so many cars with one head chooch, It's like for every extra car, you need more horses.
It's so true.
That's a lot of horses and look, horses are very nice. I have pet a horse once and it was very nice. It didn't bite me despite what other people said it might do. While I like them, they're kind beasts and you should feed one an apple or a carrot if you get the chance. Watch your fingers, but do so. But the more wagons you got, the more horses, and that's more horses to feed. Horses need to sleep. Chooches don't need to sleep. You just need to switch out that conducto.
That's right. That's true. You just need a little oil.
And you only need like one conducto, and you probably need like 2 strong people to shovel coal.
Yeah, I think so.
I think now there's less coal, and you probably just need a conducto.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. There's a lot of chooch technology.
Which conducto is conductor.
Yeah, conducto is conductor.
Just in case, just to be safe.
And circus trains have proven well suited for transportation of heavy equipment also.
Yes.
There's so much stuff that one train car alone can carry as far as equipment is concerned. And like
a whole stand, you just put it on the thing and send it on its way.
Their grandstands can go in there. Their animals can go in these train cars. These trains were like sleeper cars and like the pie cars, the food car for them. There's all these like an admin car.
Look, anyone who's seen Indiana Jones 3 knows that at the very beginning, Indiana Jones is on this exact type of train chooch we're talking about. So, you got the snake one, you got the big animal one, you got the lion. The lion got his whole cart. I don't know that would be the case in a practical way, but They have
most likely the
options.
big cats would have their own car for sure. Yeah. And then there's a separate car, and then there's a separate car for their food. You know what I mean? Like the animals all have their own cars on the stock cars, and then there's the flat cars.
And on those cars, it's also animal rules. So the animals make the rules when you're on those carts. So humans being on those, make sure you read the animal rules.
That's listed on the side of the wall.
Yeah, it's a lot of scratches, but you need at least one person who's fluent in animal jargon.
Yeah, it's a lot of claw scratches, but you'll
hey,
you'll get there.
That makes another job. So
that's right.
At the end of the day, it's good stuff.
So Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey were able to grow and kind of dominate by expanding with these trains.
Because it shoots, yeah.
Yeah. So in modern times, this circus train was able to travel once they expanded and became such a big operation. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, when they merged, they were like this circus giant. So they started as one circus train for a long time. And then in the modern age, they split into two circus trains, the blue unit and the red unit.
So they could do maybe half the country with one and the other half of the country with the other?
Yeah, so how it worked was they would do alternating tour schedules. So one unit would have a new show. They would basically be bringing a new show to the route every year. So the blue unit would have its own route, and then the red unit would have its own route, and then they would flip-flop, bringing a new show.
That's good. So yeah, the other advantage with that is that you don't need to update your acts as often, which is a hard thing to think about. What's the new thing we do every year? Because there's just that switch where you basically have a 2-year buffer for any act, essentially, which is also good for performers, keeps them working on the same stuff.
Totally. So for example, the red unit would have an entirely different show in production. The blue unit would have a entirely different show, all under the Ringling name, but different routes. So, and then they would cross through the same cities, but for example, the red would start its season in Tampa.
Yeah.
At the bottom and have its own separate route. And then blue would start its season in Providence and then have its own separate route. And then they would cross through the same cities, but not, the show is totally different. And yeah.
Well, because the people there haven't seen it.
Right. And then the dates would be totally staggered. So you wouldn't go to Tampa right after they went to Tampa. They would be totally opposite times.
Yeah, you'd start at the opposite end probably and work your way to Tampa at the end.
On the train, it says RBBB. So when I say that, it's Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. That's what it says on the side of the train. So if I say RBBB trains, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Or it says RBBX.
Oh. Is that the evil version of them? That's their evil twin? Or is that the sexy version?
I think it's to delineate, maybe RBBB is the blue unit and then RBBX is the red. I think
X maybe is the just to give it a new
to separate.
Thing. What would be less helpful but more fun if it was just RBBBBB. Just add a couple extra B's.
Just a couple extra B's.
Just do a couple more B's. We're already doing a lot of B's. Let's just go ham sandwich on it.
Right? Let's go ham sandwich. God,
let's just do it. More B's.
The trains are, each of those trains, each unit is a mile in length. Actually, over a mile.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
That is. Do you know how many train cars that equals out to? That sounds like so many.
It's 60 train cars.
60?
Yeah.
That's okay, so when you see those movies where a train car comes and it's always a car chase, right? And so the person in front, usually the protagonist, but sometimes it's the antagonist and the protagonist is chasing them. But either way, that front car wants to cross the train before it crosses
right.
to block the behind car. And the reason that actually can work is when there's these 60 long things. Because if it's a normal sized commuter train, it passes in a couple seconds and you can get on their tail again. But when it's 60 cars, you're going to wait and they're going to be, they're going to cross around the bend and you're going to lose track of them.
The cars are living quarters. It's basically 36, roughly 60 cars because they add some and they'll take some away. But
of course. And I'm sure the different acts and the two different trains probably had slightly different builds, but
they have to accommodate for the animals on that show or the gear on that show or whatever. If they have a globe of death, they have to have a
globe of death.
Yeah. Oh, we'll do a whole.
What is that?
The globe of death? Google it. I want you to Google what globe of death is.
Okay, well first I'm gonna guess what it is. A globe of death is it's built like a snow globe. right?
Cool.
But the
Maybe.
inside, it is like foggy. Instead of snow drifting down, it's like fog. And you know there's something in there, but you don't know what. It's like a primal sense. When you go near the globe of death, you're like, there's something in there. And then someone, probably somebody who's worked at the circus for fucking ever, and they they have like a glassy eye and a scar, and they're like, why don't you go up and see what's in the globe of death? And they're like, I don't know. And he's like, it's the only way to find out. And they're like, are you sure? And you look back and he's gone, and no one knows who that guy was. No one in the circus is like, that guy doesn't, I wouldn't remember if it was a guy with a glassy eye.
It was a haunted house, globe of death.
And then you go up to it, and you can feel some like otherworldly like morbidity about it. And you go up, and as soon as you put your hand on it, you see through the smoke, another hand touches yours, and you roll backward, and then you're like, did I see that? Was that real? And then you never get closer. So no one actually knows what's in the globe of death, because everyone gets a little too scared when they try to find it out.
Well, Google it. So there's a globe of death, and then there's like a wheel of death.
There's two?
Well, there's different.
Globe of wheel of death?
It's like a daredevil act, and there's a...
Oh, this is... Okay, so this is the motorcycle sphere.
That's right.
I see. I think we might have actually talked about this before.
I'm sure we have. It's cool.
Yeah. So what was the other one of death? Wheel of death?
Well, the wheel of death, or maybe I'm calling...
No, this one is also... This thing looks nuts.
Is it the two circles?
Yeah, it's like two circles, and there's like a beam in between, and there's people in it, and I think they're like...
They're standing on it, and they're flipping on it.
Yeah, they're like... And I think they're propping themselves up so that when it spins, they stay in one place, or they have to like run.
It's like a treadmill. It's like you have to just keep walking on it.
It's like a big hamster wheel.
Yeah, but you're on the outside.
That you need to keep running in so that you don't fall over.
Yeah, and it just big spins.
These are great. I mean, honestly, in anything of death, you got my interest. If I'm the Dumbo you're selling to, add a blank of death, and I'm like, now?
Yeah, let's watch it. I would love to see it.
I want to see. And I mean, while I would be a little bit like, there's no otherworldly ghost ball, snow globe, I would be like, but this is a good substitute.
Right? I mean,
this is a fine alternative.
The wheel of death is wild.
You got to be good at running.
And they do flips. They'll flip on that.
They do flips?
Oh, yeah.
There's no sides on those.
They just flip in the air. They'll just do a jump in the air.
Circus people are so brave.
And they're so talented. It's
You
insane.
really gotta be, because that kind of stuff really is like either success or broken bones.
Or not. Or very unsuccess.
Yeah, success or maybe you're dead. But the show must go on, baby.
Yeah, so that was... The two circus strains, the blue and the red, that's basically what they're comprised of, is those.
Red plooch, red plooch.
Red plooch.
Red chooch, blue chooch is what I'm trying to say in kind of like a red fish, blue fish way, but it's a tongue twister.
It is. This sure is. So yeah, that mile-long train is roughly 60 cars. So like 36 passenger cars. So for people to live in. And then 4 stock cars, which I think are flatbed cars. And then 20 freight cars. So maybe the freight cars are flat cars. Yeah, so the stock cars, I think, are for the animals. And then the freight cars are flatbed cars for all the equipment.
Also, for anyone who's struggling to think about, like, how does an animal work in, like, in case you haven't seen Indiana Jones 3, just simply picture an animal crackers box. Like, that's what we're talking about.
That's what
here.
we're talking about.
That's what it is.
That chooch. That's right.
Some of the good brands even have the little wheels on the actual outside of the box.
They do.
For maximum fun. Although, like low-key best animal cracker are the one that come in the giant plastic drums.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Those
about?
Are good.
Like the best, like sales-wise ones are the ones in the box, because that look is like unbeatable. You just can't beat that. But taste-wise, it's the dumb, simpler, like rounded edge ones that come in the big plastic drums.
Yeah, those are good. You aren't wrong.
These are my animal crackers beliefs, and I'm sticking to them.
If you want to hear some food reviews, you can join our Patreon, and we're going to do some circus food reviews.
Oh yeah, we're gonna look up some. That's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to feel really gross when I eat a lot of confectioner things straight off the bat,
back to back to back.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a real fun and yucky day.
Yeah. When do you get that fun and yucky?
You don't.
You really don't.
Not in a tax write-offable way.
Yeah, right. In the 1950s, Ringling would travel with one gigantic train system with 3 separate train loads. So they would like go one train load, and then another train load, and then another train load.
You mean that's like 3 different trains? Is that what we're talking?
Mm-hmm.
Or chooches. I'm sorry. I keep doing this.
How dare you, Mark?
Yeah.
So that would bring those train loads to the big city. So the first train load consisted of 22 cars, and that had the tents and the workers to set them up, and they would leave first. And then the second section comprised of 28 cars and carried the canvas men, ushers, and sideshow workers.
That's a lot. That's already 50 cars.
Yeah. And then the third section had 19 sleeping cars for performers. So that's how that worked before they split them up.
That makes sense. Yeah, you want to, I mean, ideally you want to get the tent there first so that you have some place to set up all this other stuff in.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Plus, this way, maybe you let the performers have a little night on the town and stuff like that, you know, while you wait for the tent to get somewhere. So they have a little bit of time off. So it's not just like, you know, perform, travel.
Well, there's an article that I'm going to read you in a little bit about this.
I like being read to.
This press agent's, how he chronicles his time in the late 40s with Ringling and his time on the train. And it's very interesting. But Ringling isn't the only train.
Rival trains? Is this the beginning of the train wars?
The Chooch Wars.
The Chooch Wars. God damn it.
So Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, closed its doors permanently, right, we know, in May 2017. And its train cars were either auctioned off or scrapped not too long after. And we'll discuss where and how and what happened to those and who bought them.
The mystery of the train cars. The Chooch cars. Gone. I have one job on the show, which is called Trains Chooches, and I'm messing it up.
Because where did those Chooch cars go, right? But Ringling wasn't the only train, on the block. And according to Wikipedia, there's a show called The Straits Show. It's STRATES. And it's a family-operated traveling carnival midway company based in Orlando. And apparently it's still going on. And it provides amusement rides, games, and concessions for the local county. They transport their company and personnel and equipment by train 7 months out of the year. Their train is comprised of 61 rail cars and 34 trucks.
Whoa.
So I thought that was, and that's still going on apparently.
That's even more.
That's a lot, right? I thought that was
31 trucks too.
Because they have rides and stuff, because it's a carnival.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. It was always fun as a kid when you're like, when that would like swing into town and there'd be like those kind of like carnival style like rides that you could ride yourself. Like, yeah,
really cool. In Germany, several circuses began using trains to move between locations in the 19th century.
Germans are very efficient.
Smaller circus operations gradually switched to road transport in the second half of the 20th century, which is the same in America as far as the smaller circuses. But Circus Krone, which we've talked about, it's spelled Krone, so Circus Krone or
not
Crony.
Coney, like the biggest letdown of 2012.
Right. But that Circus Krone or Crony moved by rail until 1999, and then they stopped it, along with Circus Roncalli, which continues to do so, which continues to travel by rail still, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, it sounds like the train is just the best way across the board for circus to travel, because you got to make so many stops. Planes are really good for one long trip because it's the fastest way.
Right.
But if you're going to make a bunch of stops at every town, like, this train's so much cheaper.
I mean, and it holds so much. Yeah. And it's just like so much more compact, I guess, ultimately. Like you could just pack it up. And then if you're going to be at a place for 2 weeks and then you leave.
Yeah.
So a quick timeline of how circus hit the rails in the U.S., namely Barnum and Bailey's circus. And then when they merged to become Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, which we are all familiar with, is 1872, Mr. P.T. Barnum.
PP himself.
Yeah. He takes the rails for the first time with his partners at the time, William Cameron Coop and then Dan Costello. And so they all decide to get on the rails. And then P.T. ditches those dudes. And then he merges with Barnum and Bailey.
He's like, I don't need you fools.
Yeah, he merges with Bailey. And then 1891, they're merged. And then they have their first performance in 1891. They blow up as they do.
For a second, I thought you meant like exploded.
No, they didn't. Sorry, I confused you.
Which, I mean, honestly, though, when we're talking PT, that's not that weird of a thing.
Sorry, they got very, very popular as they do.
Yes, they hit the big
especially,
time.
and that rail travel had a huge part in it because they were able to get everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, because then what the beauty of that is, you do really good in one town, word probably gets out to local towns. And then if you're coming to the next town and you just got a good review in the previous one, you're going to get a lot more people. And that's going to have compounding effects every town you go to.
But yeah, they took over cities every time, and they were able to transport a whole city of people to the city every time.
Circus City, not to be confused with Circuit City, which I don't think is around anymore.
It's definitely not.
Yep.
And then they were able to travel to Europe and then tour and move by rail in Europe. So they had 8 sleeping cars among 67 cars built in England for a 5-year tour. So from 1897 to 1902,
Wow.
they traveled. And then 50 cars from Barnum's European train eventually became the train for Buffalo Bill's Wild West show when it toured in Europe, which I thought was interesting. I did not know that. So then James Bailey passes away in 1906.
One of the bees.
Yeah, one of the bees, because the first bee is already gone. Ringling Brothers had bought Barnum and Bailey in 1906 as well. And then they made it official in 1907 that they owned this circus.
Mm-hmm. We own the circus now. Nobody F's with us.
Right. And then they don't make it official that they're Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and go on the road until 1919 with their train.
Well, you got to do all that circus paperwork. I mean, as we know from Clown episode, there's a lot of bureaucracy that needs to happen.
So much paperwork. So 1956, the last Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey traveling tent show occurred because they stopped using tents, right? Because of the Hartford Circus fire and all of the safety precautions.
Yep, tents were outlaws. They're like, no, we don't put napalm on the outside of our tents anymore. We found out that's actually a bad idea.
Yeah, so they're like, no more tent shows. You guys have to be in a building because you're obviously not responsible enough to be outside.
Yeah, you guys don't know how to make a tent safe. You can't do it.
Thereafter, the circus performed only in air-conditioned arenas.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure the crowd liked.
Oh, sure.
You get that AC, because like tent, bad ventilation. Bad, you can't put windows on a tent.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have the tents, but they still traveled by the rail because they needed to still cover that ground.
I mean, the rail's the only way.
There is a blip on there from 1957 to 1959 where Ringling Brothers takes a break from the rails and converts temporarily to tractor trailers.
That's interesting. Tractor trailers, huh? I mean, I guess that kind of like there's a bit of that kind of makes sense because you're not as limited to the actual railway with that. You could like go off in different areas, but I feel like that's hard. Like it's just a little more complicated.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. So the elephants and horses are still transported by rail and stock cars, but maybe they're trying to save money, but then they just stop doing it because there's like, everybody has to stay in a trailer except for the animals. It's like, if you still have a train, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's like not that different, and you need more drivers that way.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
Because that's the thing. The beautiful thing about the chooch is that like once you set it, you can kind of forget it. Not completely.
Right.
But you set it and you go a certain distance, and then you don't have to be like a car. You literally need to be constantly at the wheel, aware and awake, which is why trucker is such like a tough job that you got to do, because you got to drive so straight and be so awake the whole time. But that's one truck. This is like a bunch of people, so it is, and that's also like a specific profession that you kind of need to like train your brain for and crap like that, because if you're not good at staying awake, you're going to have a rough time with that job.
Yeah, so. Indeed. And so then after that, they went back to the train. And I'm not sure when the red and blue units surface, because they tried a gold unit for a year. And then it was like,
Gold unit. I mean, Pokemon tried the same thing, but it just wasn't the same.
It wasn't. And then it went away, and then the red and blue units surface. March 10th, 2017, the RBBX circus train are auctioned.
RBBX. After the, all the success of the Triple X franchise, they're like, we gotta get
Right.
X's in. It's the coolest letter.
We just need one X. We just want
It'll
one
spice
X.
it up. And that's what we want. We want modern spice applied to the circ.
Yep. And then May 7th, 2017, the last red unit has their circus performance. And then May 21st, the blue unit has their circus performance. So that's when the last circus performances for both of those trains occur. And then they start to auction off those trains.
So then what do they do now that there's no more, they don't have their chooches no more?
Well, the circus is closed.
All of it forever?
Ringling is for sure. Yeah. They ended.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
because I haven't seen or heard about them for quite a while.
Those are the last performances of
But that's still
circus.
pretty recent in the scheme of things.
Yeah, it's very recent. they officially closed after being a circus for 146 years.
Which, like, how many businesses have been around for that long? Like, that's pretty
wild.
nuts. 146 years? That's older than me.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. Barely.
We'll get to where those train cars are.
Yeah, where are those train cars?
I want to talk about the actual inside of the train.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, okay. So you architecture heads, buckle up because we got you. What's inside the chooch? What's the chooch train like? Let's hit it.
So there was one private car built especially for the circus owner, John Ringling.
Of course.
Called the Joe Mar train.
You need the fancy one for the fancy pants who owns the whole thing. I mean, if they're going to shell out that train money, you know they're going to make themselves a very cool
of course
private room with maybe some like secrets, kind of like a haunted house, like picture frames that they can go behind so they can see, is anyone plotting to like steal my circus trains? Right. I'll say, you can come in. I'll be there in just a moment. And then you hide behind the pictures and see, are they trying to steal my deeds? Are they trying to do anything?
They better be not.
They better not.
I'm going to send you a couple pictures of the
Let me see. Where am I looking in the chat?
Here's one picture of them blessing the old RBB train.
Well, you don't want any deviling on board.
No, of course not.
Let's see. Circus train, baby. Right click to open. Who's Jomar?
Wait, where are you looking?
It says that on the side of the train that they're blessing.
Oh, yeah. So Jomar that's John Ringling's personal train that we're talking about.
Oh, well, he did like to name things. It's funny to me too that they're like, all right, well, we gotta get a priest out there to bless it, and the priest is like, I'm not going anywhere unless I have 2 altar boys to hold my stuff. They
would always bless the train before it took off. Which we'll do like religion and circus in another episode, but I think that's so interesting.
Well, it's also like, there's all the superstition too, and you don't want to, like, if that worked, like if you got it blessed and then you had a good year, you're gonna want to keep doing that.
Right. So the second picture that I sent is
a pretty nice looking interior for a train. It looks like a little apartment.
So that's John's private car, though. That's the owner's car.
Oh, no wonder. Because it straight up looks like a small, nice apartment. What year is that one from? So
it's Jomar. It's John and Mabel Ringling. So I think it's Joma, Mabel.
Oh, for both of them.
And he was like very extravagant. So for years it would run on excursions and with the circus train. Upon John's death in 1936, it was taken over by his nephew, John Ringling North, who modernized its previous.
I thought it was going to be like John Ringling Jr., but he just decided to skip that suffix, I think. And add North?
It was his nephew, is why. Because I don't think he had kids. John Ringling.
So he can't technically be a junior then.
Yeah, it's his nephew, so North is his. So it's probably his sister. So John Ringling North, he modernized it, added air conditioning. So that's him in there.
That's probably the best thing they ever did to it.
Yeah, right. And then the car often ran with the circus train as well. Mm-hmm. So that picture, I think, is from 47.
That makes sense. You can tell by the decor.
Later, the car housed circus managers, and also it housed Art Kinsello. He was a very famous flyer. That was like a VIP train. You know what I'm saying? Like that was for the VIP people.
VIP train.
So later on, after it housed the manager and Art Kinsello, and a variety of VIP performers, it served as the home of John Ringling North. And I think it was probably near his home. I can't imagine that whole train car was home.
Chooch home. I wonder if he did that for like money or like out of like personal choice. Like, because you either do that because you can't afford the house or you don't want to spend the money and you're like, I'll just live on the chooch.
Well, he had a lot of money. He was the owner during the whole Hartford fire thing.
Oh, well, didn't the circus not actually end up paying out very much for that? Didn't they like get away with it pretty much?
They did have to pay people
They did have to pay people?
They had to give everybody the profits for 10 years. But during that time, like in 1952, there was a really, and we'll talk about it in an episode, but Cecil B. DeMille made a film called The Greatest Show on Earth. Not The Greatest Showman.
Oh, dangerously close. They better be careful.
But it was 1952, and it's a beautiful film. It has Charlton Heston and Jimmy Stewart in it.
Oh, not bad.
Get out, right? And it won an Academy Award. But John Ringling North is in the movie because it's about Ringling Brothers.
Oh.
And I'm sure they made so much money from that movie.
You gotta know they did. Maybe so that covered their, covered that overhead.
A lot of it, I would imagine.
Hey, and that's just like a personal suggestion to those out there. If you ever get sued for a big oopsie, just make a movie. Just make a very popular movie, and then that'll
oopsie.
cover all the, the money you have to pay out to the poor people you screwed over by accident.
Right? So that train car stayed at his home. It stayed at their winter quarters in Sarasota. And then they sold the business in 1967. And then it served as employee housing at the winter quarters moving forward from there. So, but what makes up the train car? We talked about how the red and the blue unit now have those 36 cars, the 36 passenger cars, the 4 stock cars, the 20 freight. And I suspect that the stock is for the animals. And then the freight, I would imagine, is for the equipment. The passenger cars consist of like residential cars. And I would imagine like the food car, like the pie car. There's a whole chef car where he makes all the food and preps it all. He makes like 1,000 meals a day, something nuts.
Oh, well, I mean, and I would imagine, because if he's got a lot more meals than the pie car had, and the pie car had to do so many pies a day.
Right.
I mean,
and it was shaped like a pie. My God.
And look, exactly. And you're going to want a lot of counter space with something like that. So it's got to be real long. Ideally, you have one of those islands too. Because look, I cook for one. You need a lot of counter space.
You sure do. I mean, it's a long train, right? So.
Yeah. And so with all those people, it's a lot of counter space.
Well, I'm going to try to find
picture of the counter space.
Well, I'm going to find a picture of one of the dining cars. Or it's not a dining car necessarily.
That's a big thing. When you cook in a kitchen that doesn't have counter space, and then you go to one that has some counter space, you're like, how the F did I ever deal with that lack of space?
Here's a picture of a bunk, like a modern bunk room.
Let's see what we got up here. Oh, it's an itty bitty bed.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
This just looks like an apartment that you could get now in Los Angeles for $1,300.
Which is so sad, right?
It's when I was looking for apartments before I found this place, I was looking at some solo places, and you can't. It's so ridiculous. It's like, if you don't want to pay, $1,200 or more, you're not going to get a kitchen.
It's so crazy,
you just
right?
can't make food for yourself, and you're like, how is that even allowed?
So nuts. Yeah, how's that even legal? Like,
I don't know, and maybe they're not. But
I don't know.
But that's the options when you're looking for stuff that's 1,000 or less. Which, buddy, you're not gonna find it. I mean, like, this would be fine for like a little bit, but if you're going on, I don't know that this is the length of time, but if you're doing like a 5-year tour in a room like this, I mean. I guess it's a little different, too, when you are not in the room. Man, this woman with all her stuff in it. Toaster oven, though, I see that. Toaster oven?
Clutch.
So good. If you're trying, I mean, it takes up some space, but if you gotta, like, really be conservative with your appliances, toaster oven is basically an oven.
Right. And so the one to follow is one of the food cars, like the dining cars where they would eat.
The food car is nice. See,
it's like a little diner.
Food car picture, exactly. It looks like a small diner. This one looks like I like it. Like, I'd actually probably like to eat in that.
Right.
These rooms for the individuals are pretty they're so small.
Well, so some are bigger, some are smaller. So the train cars of the residential cars are either like apartment or bunk cars, and they can house, like, the actual full train cars can hold either like 2 apartments or like 2. They range from like 2 to like 11 rooms.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so some are super spacious and some are not.
I imagine the higher you get on the circus celeb status, you probably get nicer rooms.
That's exactly right.
So,
yeah.
like, I would imagine someone like Mabel on the height of her day, she probably had a pretty good spot.
Yeah, they actually told her you get your own car. Like, that's something that they enticed her.
And she's like, can the cats sleep with me? And they're like, we don't think that's a good idea. And she says, I sleep with those cats or I don't work here. And they said, I don't know logistically. And she's like, bop, bop, bop. And they're like, all right, we want you.
That was something that he enticed her with, was like, you get your own car, your whole car, which is huge.
That's like a whole trailer for you.
Yeah. Maybe she had that car. Maybe she had that car that we were just talking about, the one that Art Consello stayed in, maybe. Or maybe there was another one.
And then she would sneak the tigers in at night so they could sleep together.
Snuggles.
Talking to someone who's had a baby cat sleep on his chest, it's very nice.
It is very nice.
It's very cute. You'd probably have to sleep on the tiger's chest, but...
But then you go up and down while they dream and they sleep and breathe.
Oh, my God. I miss the cats. I'm at home and the cats are outside and I miss them.
If the train car has like more rooms, it's often a shared bathroom at the end of the hall. Or like the nicer rooms that are bigger, not nicer, but if they have more space, some of those have a shared kitchen. But the ones that have a bathroom at the end of the hall, often don't have a kitchen at all.
Just like Los Angeles solo apartments.
Yeah, so it just depends on, I guess your rank. I would imagine it's like part of your rate and your pay is how nice your room is,
Yeah, how new you are probably.
Yeah, I would suppose so.
And what your position probably is too. It's like the more expendable you are, the dinkier room you get, which is unfortunate, but
So those residential cars can range in size. I spoke to a
train. You spoke to Thomas the Chooch Engine?
He was not available for this.
He's very famous. That makes sense.
Yeah, he is really famous. But I spoke to a circus pal. I really appreciate the circus community that I've kind of formed. I have some friends that are in the circus, but I've gained some, and I'm very grateful for that.
I mean, you've been so near the circus for so long. There's no way you wouldn't.
Yeah, it's nice. And there's a lot of performers that I've started chatting with, and they know a lot of people that I know. And it's nice for them, all these paths to cross. It's cool.
Well, I mean, it also gives the show a lot of credibility, because you have inside scoops. Not only have you been there to scoop the scoop yourself, but whenever you don't have the specific scoop, you go to someone who does have that scoop, and you're like, "What's the scoop?" And they're like, "Let me tell you, you're my friend. I'll give you the real deal."
Right? Can you scoop the scoop for me?
And that's what you come for here on Circus Stories. You get the real deal scoops. You get the big scoops on the best cones.
Right. I'm gonna give you the biggest scoop.
Biggest of scoops. And then I'm the idiot who eats the ice cream. I'm like, this is good.
This is a good scoop.
That's like my whole role in the show.
Yeah. We hand you the scoop and you're like, that's a good scoop.
I'm like, this ice cream is good. Is this a sugar cone or waffle? Oh, waffle.
We're like, look at it.
Waffle sounds like truffle. And it's just like, what?
Right? You're like, that's snozzberries. Tastes like snozzberries. Like, that's right, Mark. They do. So this current performer told me that she was on Ringling for a time. And I'll just...
Oh, the biggest of boys.
I'll just call her R. I'm not going to use her name because I just think that's easier.
We respect their anonymity.
Sure. So she used to be on Ringling, and she said that... I think she was just on the first season, but she traveled on the train. The
60 thing train, right? The big one.
Yeah, because she's younger than me for sure, and still performing.
Well, because that chooch has been. I mean, it's only recently been decommissioned.
That's right. Yeah, only 3 years ago. So, or 3 and some. So, so she was on the car. I think that she said she was on, a car with about probably like 10 bunks.
Okay, bunk car then. So not solo room. It was a bunk scenario.
Yeah, well, so she had a couple rooms. She said she was on the car with the 1st of May clowns and boy dancers.
Probably pretty energetic bunch.
Definitely. And she says her room was just big enough, quote, some of the older clowns were on other cars with bigger rooms. So the new clowns got the smaller rooms.
I mean, yeah, you get that clown seniority.
She's not a clown herself, but she may have been a dancer at this point.
I mean, it makes sense. There were the boy dancers and the clowns. I mean, it's the energetic,
Yeah, she performs the hair hang but perhaps she was doing something else on this show. I'm not sure. She says that her room was just big enough for a tiny bed, a little fridge, and a microwave, and it had a sink.
Okay. You get enough counter space for a toaster oven, and you have a makeshift whole kitchen.
Yeah, she had a microwave, though, so that's good.
That's something. Although I'm team toaster oven all the way. F microwaves, team toaster oven.
Yeah, me too.
Sound off in the comments, but don't be mean to each other.
Don't be mean. Exactly. Let me know.
Don't be mean. Just do pros and cons in a civil way.
Agreed. I know. We have a toaster oven.
They're great. Really good. That's the only way to make French fries reheat and taste good. I'll tell you that.
That's true. You got it crispy, not
you gotta
soggy.
Get them crispy. And this is a little tip. I know I'm getting pretty off track, but I'm so passionate about toaster ovens. Say you got some good kind of bread, like baguette bread, something nice like that, and you want to toast it up. So, but you've been keeping it in the freezer, in the fridge, whatever, so it stays longer. What you do is you take off a chunk, you cut it in half, you put it in the toaster oven, but so the two inside halves are kissing, so it's as if you didn't cut it, and you toast it that way. Ooh. So the whole outside gets crispy, and the inside stays soft.
Smart.
And then it basically is like revitalizes the whole bread. Because a lot of times if you try to redo older bread, it's just kind of like stale and a little too stiff and crunchy, but you do it that way. That's your best way to make it, to recreate that original outside hot, hard crunch and inside soft, sweet. I got a lot of bread tech that we can also maybe talk about in the Patreon.
A lot of bread tips, a lot of bread talk. Revitalize my bread.
Mark's bread tips. I spend a lot of time with bread.
So R says that some people had a second bunk because in her room was one bed.
Oh, so some people had to double up.
Yeah, right. So
Hopefully
room...
that's couples and twins only.
Twins.
Because then, you guys are so in sync and you probably had bunk beds your whole life, so it's an easy fit.
That's so funny. But she says that her room was the second smallest size room.
Second smallest?
Yeah.
What's the other one? Just like a pit? A Harry Potter style cubby hole?
But this is funny. So she says the rooms were referred to as, quote, coffins. Because they're so small, which I think is so funny.
And imagine that's the second smallest. You can't imagine. Maybe the other one was just an actual coffin. It's like you
right,
sleep
urns.
here.
They're called urns, maybe.
Squeeze into this jar.
Yeah, right. Some performers, like the more seasoned ones, had bigger rooms and shared kitchens.
Oh, well. I would love to see a cadre of clowns all working together to make Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. I know. That's a visual I could live with.
Her car also had one shower and one toilet.
That's pretty good.
So everybody shared at the end of the hall.
Oh, I was imagining her room. Yeah, no, that's not enough for a full car.
Because she just had a sink. So they all had one shower, one toilet at the end of the hall.
Yeah, that's tough. Because especially if you got to take a two, you want time, but
you get close though. You're traveling with these people for a long time.
You gotta get close. Cause everyone shares the same bathroom.
Plus you're during the show and you're doing a lot of, depends on the performer, but it's you're moving fast, you're quick change. You got to do all these stuff. You're training. It's you get close with these people pretty fast in your department, I guess, or whatever. But it sounds like she's in a hodgepodge of that car. But I would guess your car gets pretty close, whatever your sleepy car is.
Oh, it's got. You see those people every day, and in the most intimate of circumstances, you're so physically close to all these people.
And I will say, I had a friend, Josh, that was on Ringling for a season, and he was just doing rigging. But I visited him at the train, and everybody's outside of their car. They're all sitting in chairs, and they have a whole setup because they don't want to be in it. If they don't have to be.
Oh yeah, it sounds like the quarters are pretty small and. When you have that kind of space, the best way to stay the most sane in it is only being there when you have to be. Because then it's not as bad. Then it's a little cozy thing. But if you're in there all the time, then it gets really claustrophobic. Yeah.
And there's a few circuses that I've been to where if the performer or whomever is on the show has a trailer, they all have a setup outside of their trailer. Because it's why if you don't have to be in there and you have some chairs.
I imagine too, you're seeing all these different places all over the US or Europe, wherever you are. You're going to want to see the local area you're in probably.
Well, and they just want to be not in there. You know what I mean? So they have lawn chairs and an outdoor rug and they have a little setup. Yeah.
That's their real room is outside of that train car.
Yeah. They're just out. It's they're camping, outside and it's much more I think probably keeps them a little more sane.
I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Except that diner car, you want to be in that all the time.
Yeah, except for
that's the good one.
Eating the good stuff.
Eating those pies.
So for some, though, the train was their permanent home. I read an article from New York Times from 2009 that chronicles a couple of stories of performers on the train, the Ringling train. One of this family that lives year-round on this train, on one of the 33 coach cars, the residential cars, and their space was pretty much like an apartment. So this family, the Griggs family, had a cozy apartment basically with an eat-in kitchen, really nice views, 2 flat screen TVs.
2?
Yeah. A room for their son Bryce, and he could ride his skateboard up and down the hall. It's pretty big.
That's pretty good for a young kid because I feel like that's one of the major skateboarding rules is no skateboarding inside the house. You can skateboard inside the house.
Griggs, Jonathan Griggs, was the circus manager.
Oh, well, no wonder he got that deal.
Right. So that's why.
And also no wonder they probably lived on it because, if your whole business is the Cirque, you're going to make that chooch your home.
So, yeah, you have to do that's your job. You work there all the time.
And you're going to save so much money because you're never going to be in a house anyway if you're traveling the entire year. It's it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because some performers and crew, they'll hop from circus to circus, but this guy's the manager of the circus.
Yeah. Or you'll like do it for a year or two and then you'll maybe do something else.
Right, exactly. From season to season. Sure. Another performer, Leah Christina Gonzalez.
Another good name. Circus people have great names.
They do. So from this New York Times article in 2009, Miss Gonzalez, her place was more modest, but she did live on the train. Also, she had like a cubicle-like bedroom, no living room, and a shower she shares with 7 roommates.
Whoa.
Who all keep odd hours because they're performers.
Single shower, 7 roommates? It's a lot.
The article's like, pretty good for a 26-year-old that's away from home. I was like, all right.
You're like, I guess.
I mean, she's seeing the world, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's pros and cons to the whole deal.
Sure. But so the manager of the circus, Mr. Griggs, says, quote, we're basically a city without a zip code.
I bet he said that so many times in his life. That's like his like party anecdote.
Yeah. He said they basically like compare the 33 coach cars, the residential cars, to like a 33-story apartment building, only horizontal.
33 skidoo.
Yeah. So with onboard electricians and mechanics in place of a super. So that makes sense for the train, right?
That makes sense. Well, yeah, I imagine if your apartment, if the toilet's screwy or something and you got to call your landlord, you just go to the front of the train and be like, Mr. Griggs, my toilet's shooting water up.
Yeah, not supposed to.
It's not supposed to do that.
And me and 6 other people are very mad about it. So what?
Yeah, none of us can take a 2. So can we figure this out?
Yeah, we got a 2. We got a 2 now.
We got a 2. If we don't 2, you're not going to get your show. Haha.
Your shoe show. So from this New York Times article, about 250 people lived on the train permanently.
And they all used one bathroom.
Yeah, performers, train crew members, cooks, stagehands lived all year round on this train. One of 2 of these trains that would crisscross the country carrying elephants, costumes, stage equipment, cast, and crew, all that good stuff. And Miss Gonzalez, one of the residents that I just spoke about, was a gymnast, and also her role in the show was she was a gymnast, and she also rode an elephant in the show.
Oh, that's a sweet role.
Yeah. And so her room was not much bigger than the standard sleeping compartments, 8 to a car.
Mm-hmm. She probably had more space on that elephant.
Yeah. So 8 to a car. So 8 rooms in a car, which was probably the size of what my friend's room was.
Yeah. It's got to be with that many rooms in a car. I mean, I don't know how long exactly a car is, but I have ridden on trains in New York. And to get 8 rooms, I'm imagining it's probably a similar length. And if you're going to get 8 rooms on something like that, I mean, yeah, they got to be pretty tiny.
I'm going to send a couple more pictures.
Let's see. Oh, this is modern because that guy has a Deadpool shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
There's the chair outside of the train.
Yeah, they need it.
Oh, this is the RBBX. RBBX. X for extreme.
Extreme. So there's a length of a train car you could see. I mean, I don't know. You have no reference really, but you know.
I mean, that's about the length of my thumb.
Sure. My thumb.
If I hold my hand up to the screen. That's thumb to palm. Easy thumb to palm. That looks about like the ones that I would like take from my town into New York City. I mean, it's similar to any subway car too. It might be a little smaller. Subway might be a little smaller than this, but
yeah, I think that one train car is probably like 3 subway cars, maybe.
Real? I mean,
like a full car. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe 2.
Yeah, maybe 2. Yeah, maybe 2. Maybe 2. Yeah.
I haven't been in a while, but still, even so, to get 8 like rooms in that is like pretty nuts. I mean, they might be a little bigger too, since this is like their main purpose than just like a commuter rail. But I would imagine the length. I don't know. I don't know if they're like custom, but regardless, I can't imagine they're that much bigger. Yeah.
So this manager, Griggs, says their dwelling takes up half the coach car. Oh, I'm sorry. He doesn't say that, but it does. It's like half of the full train car. And it's like larger than some New York apartments. It's pretty big.
Which is also sad.
I know, right? And quote from the article, with a dinette, beige kitchen cabinets, a full-size refrigerator covered with family photos, and a bathroom sink where their son Bryce can keep his Spider-Man toothbrush. Very cute. Aww. And it looks like it could be anywhere. Like it just looks like a house, or apartment.
Yeah, just like a small apartment somewhere.
When the train stops, it spends about a week at most destinations. And then the residents of the train can take a circus bus to town. So there's a bus on the train to take them to wherever they need to go.
Oh, train bus. A turducken of vehicles.
Right. And the bus has to take them to the arena when they perform also.
So, of course, you need a shuttle vehicle.
Right. So, and then the bus can take them to do errands. There's not a lot of people that have cars,
Fun errands, important errands. You go see a movie
There's
or something.
a few cars and motorcycles that are hauled on the trains, flatbeds and freight cars.
For the cooler of the performers.
Yeah. But I mean, not a lot of people have those.
You can ride a bus. You can do the motorcycle.
And I guess for people that are year round, they have their vehicles, but some people just don't need it. So they just take that bus. But if they don't want to be chained to that.
Well, also all the people doing the the circle of death.
Yeah, they have their motorcycles. Exactly.
They got their motorcycles. You might as well take it into town.
Yeah. And in the article, they say life on the train was more civilized than hopping from hotel to hotel. You don't have to pack and unpack, and you can keep all of your stuff in the apartment. It's like you live there. It's like an apartment.
Because that's always a stressful part of moving anywhere, whether you're moving an apartment or just like going on vacation and coming back, is you got to pack. Not only it's I feel like, at least for me, it's not so much the actual packing, it's the thinking of like, what do I need? What can't I forget? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Right.
This way you don't have to think about that.
Right. And most of the performers who come from 18 countries are between 18 and 26, so fairly young that are on the train, but some are older and with their own families, including 15 children who have their own teacher and daycare on board of the train.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a operation. It's like a city. It's like a whole situation there.
It's gotta be. You're getting all your age groups in there. That sounds like a college town with like some people who stuck around.
Right? Yeah. They're like, I'm going to be a professor.
I'm going to profess. Or like, they're like, this town is so nice. I'm going to like teach yoga here. Or I don't know, like figure out a way. I'm going to manage the bagel emporium here.
The bagel emporium. So this circus manager, Griggs, says...
Which is a good circus manager name. Continuing, the whole circus folk have great names.
Jonathan Griggs.
It's good.
So he says, quote, this is really part of American history, in reference to the actual train.
Yeah, absolutely.
He says, quote, it's one of the last trains where you can lean out and feel the fresh air go by.
Which has been outlawed recently.
Has it?
No.
Oh, I was like, what?
No, but because when he said that, I was like, what do you mean? Why couldn't you do that?
Yeah, it just paints such a nice picture of it.
Yes.
There's another article that I read from 2016 from Sarasota Magazine that was initially published in 1992 and then republished in 2016. But the contents of it is from the late 1940s, if that makes sense. And it's basically Dean Loomis was the press agent for Ringling during the late 1940s. And he chronicles his time there, traveling the train as the press agent. And he took some photos. This article of his travels, it's like a not a narrative, but like kind of like a diary of his travels.
A chronicle, perhaps.
It chronicles his travels on there. Yeah, but it discusses how the train was back in its circus heyday in the late 40s. So I'm just going to read a lot from that article because it's really cool. So, quote, for most of every year, the 1,600 humans who comprised the cast and crew of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus lived together in the close quarters of a circus train. It was a hard, grinding life. The work was exhausting, as were the large and loud crowds, as was the unceasing music coming from one or another of the circus's bands. As for the job sites themselves, they were sheltered by canvases and that offered scant protection from rainstorms, sleet, and high winds. Crises seemed to arise at every moment. Wild animals on the rampage, trapeze accidents, lost children, sick elephants, pickpockets, and even on occasion death. Every night, we circus folk left the showgrounds and made our way, still drenched in adrenaline, to the railroad yards. There was usually an atmosphere of exhilaration, and a sense of relief that the evening had not ended with someone being killed, maimed, or arrested.
Jesus.
We traveled by fourth class freight, which meant that all regularly scheduled trains took precedence, which meant that no one was ever sure when the circus train would depart. Its 100 cars were broken into 4 sections, each of which left an hour or more apart. Still, for many, it was home, or a kind of home anyways. The privacy was minimal, and the ambiance created by this conglomeration of athletes and beauties and adventurers and freaks and con merchants often resembled a pressure cooker on a slow flame. He says freaks. I didn't say freaks. Okay.
Of course.
I continue. Okay. Once the day's 2 shows were over, the workers had time on their hands, money in their pockets, and uninhibited fun on their mind. The air was electric, and the circus folk attracted a motley assortment of followers in every town where they stopped. There were fantastic things to be seen on those nights, and I saw them all. At the lowest level were the casual laborers, most of whom were winos who joined the show for a few days or weeks and then disappeared into the void. One level up were the working men, the roustabouts, and the canvas backs. Then there were the wranglers and the grooms who took care of the 1,000 animals on the train. Above them were the sideshow freaks. Above them were the prop men and riggers. And above them were the ushers and band members. At every show, no matter the city or town, the loudest applause was always reserved for the California Sea Lions, who played My Country 'Tis of Thee on horns. That's for you.
Oh my God.
Accordingly, their trainer, Captain Eddie Firth, always traveled in one of their circus train's fanciest cars, along with the powerful ticket sellers who always seemed to be carrying great rolls of cash in their pockets. The Sea Lions, meanwhile, were always just 1 car away, traveling in a special tank Firth rigged atop a flat car. The car always had a freezer full of vast quantities of fish for the Sea Lions, which Firth always seemed to be defrosting and feeding to his brood. He always washed his hands thoroughly afterwards. However, as the meticulous ticket sellers would not tolerate the smell of fish in his fancy car, even if it came from the man who ran the circus's hottest act. For a young fellow like me, the circus train was never less than exciting, and the places it took me were always fascinating. If the weather was good, I'd watch the world go by from a flat car, my legs dangling over the side. I want to do that. That sounds rad.
Pretty fun. That sounds pretty cool.
That's like, fuck, that's so cool. So
that's a great little segment.
There's some stuff that I left out, like, then there's a lot of railway bars that they would stop at and like maybe get in a fight.
Oh, sure. Why not?
Or the girls would get saucy at the bars per this gentleman.
Saucy?
Whatever. But, and Cuckoo, the bird girl, one of the ladies from Freaks.
Yes, of course.
He references she was on the show at the time and she was like a favorite at the bars and would like outdrink anybody.
That's awesome.
And she'd always be like super flirty to these guys in her costume to the like locals and be like, "You want to buy me a drink?"
Yeah. And they're probably like, "Oh, sure, you can."
Yeah. Well, and she'd also be like, "You want to buy me a drink?" And they're like, "Huh?" Like, because they're all freaked out. And then she would just like drink a shit ton of. It's just really cool. So that kind of gives you an idea of the train travel, how ruckus and rompous it was, how unpredictable and laborious it was, but also how like fun and exciting and like, that romantic idea of a circus.
Yeah. It really that really said to me, it kind of like spoke to the whole like work hard, play hard, like grind
totally
that the circus can have with it.
Exactly.
And I gotta say, I love so much that the biggest, nicest car goes to the Sea Lions. I love that.
Right? I was like, hell yeah.
Of course, they should get nice, soft beds in their tank or wherever. Maybe like a good rock. I don't know, to swim out and go on and then like kind of dry out a little bit. And you're like, all right, I'm feeling a little crispy. I'm going to go back in the tank. And I always have cold fish on tap. I mean, that's got to be huge for them. Right?
You just pull the tap and they just come out.
You just pull the tap and they start slopping out that tube.
Man. Yeah. So I really liked that. But
I also love that the Sea Lions are the best part. They're like the highest.
Right? Amazing.
It's like, come on. They played a song. Get the F
They
out.
love it.
The Sea Lions played musical instruments. I love that.
America loves the horns.
They do. Right? We love horns.
They do.
They're loud and brash like we are.
But not all modern circuses travel by train. And obviously not at all here in the US. Now that we are not in the age of huge arena circuses, really, in America, we are at least in the age of smaller circuses, single ring circuses. They are colloquially referenced as mud shows now. These kinds of shows, these smaller shows, they travel in like trailers and semis to haul their large equipment. And I've seen this in the smaller shows that I've like traveled with, I guess, in an RV myself, and then seen them like pack up and go and pack up and go. When on a smaller show, that same friend of mine, we'll call her, she commented that when she travels from show to show in a smaller mud show, like she traveled in a rig trailer, every single door, she says, quote, every single door had to be bungeed down. Cabinets, the fridge, the door outside. Otherwise, it would be a mess. Sometimes it wasn't easy finding the lot either.
Oh, man.
And she said that once they didn't have a clear communication on where exactly the next location was. And so they started to put up the tent in the wrong spot.
Oh, no.
Which I thought was so funny.
They're just putting it on top in someone's backyard. And they're just like, what? They're like, we got confused.
But you do have to, when you get to a spot, in these smaller shows, you unpack all your stuff, like you unbungee your stuff, and you like people that travel on a circus and that's all they know. Like they have pictures out and they have like rugs out and their fridge is, open and a jar, you know what I mean? All their clothes are whatever, however it's stored. And then when you leave, you have to bungee it because it will all fall out. And yikes.
Yeah, it'll just like move around, especially if you're not on a train that's going a fixed speed in a fixed direction.
If you're in an RV, it's gonna fucking go nuts, So you have to bungee everything down.
They should really get on ratchet straps, because as somebody who has loaded a lot of trucks, those work wonders. That thing ain't moving nowhere.
Yeah, but in the interior of your RV, you know what I mean? Because these people live in there, so they have like pictures out and like little tchotchkes and stuff. And so there's certain things that they have to like take down and then put back up again to make it feel like their house. Yeah, they don't have
little hook holes in the walls where they can. I wonder if you just, the move is to glue your tchotchkes to the mantle. I mean, yes, it's harder to, change up your decor, but then you don't have to worry about bungeeing that glass like little like cherub or whatever you have, or picture frame.
Yeah, that's true. But there's like a whole routine that every person has for their house, their wherever they stay and sleep. It's like, this goes away, this gets bungeed, this cabinet's weird, whatever, they have to, you know what I mean? It's so funny.
Yeah. Tape this shut. Just leave it shut. Don't you open that. Because when you open it, all the Cheetos are going to fall out and they're loose.
Right? But then once you get to your spot, you like open up your awning or whatever, and then you put your mats out and then you put your chairs out and you like get settled, and it's cool.
Get them all out there. Throw that bean bag outside,
You know
baby.
What I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send you pictures that I lazily screenshot. So hey, sorry.
I bet you I won't be able to tell. Oh, yeah. I see with the awning and everything.
Yeah. So this one circus that I visited, the Zolpe Circus, a lot of them had Avion trailers, which are like Airstreams. It's just a different brand, I guess, of trailer.
Yeah, this one says Avion.
So here's another picture of one of the performers on that show, where it's like they have all their stuff out once they get there. They have like their kids' toys out, and they just like let it loose. You know what I mean? Like they have to, because they are living there.
Well, so the kids' toy in this is one of those little cars that like a kid would drive around, and it's unclear if there's like a pedal with a small motor or if it's like Flintstone style.
I think it was a motor. It's a little Mini Cooper.
That was like the number one thing that I would want as a kid that my parents would not get me, because I hated
Power
walking.
Wheels.
I wanted like when I was a kid, one of the coolest things was like the Barbie or the Tonka trunk car that literally was like a little kid's car.
Yeah.
And I wanted that so bad.
Do you remember that commercial? It was like pow, pow, Power Wheels.
Pow, pow, well, yeah, of course. Pow, pow, Power Wheels.
So good. But the Zolpe show, they all have like trailers, whether it's those Avion trailers, or they have one trailer that's like the community trailer that has, I think, 4 beds. But if you don't want to stay in that, you're on your own. You know what I mean? It's like
you just find your own place to sleep.
Yeah, if you don't want to stay in that, then you have to have a trailer. You know what I mean?
The woods is your trailer.
Yeah, it's like you come to work then and sleep either in that place or wherever.
And I get that sounds like, I mean, maybe it's different per. Well, are you saying that's the one that's not on the trains? That's the one that's like in the.
These are smaller mud shows, like any single ring show, because they don't travel on trains. They travel by truck.
Well, that's the crazy thing. It's like, you thought those train rooms are small. Just wait till you do a smaller circuses show. It's like
right where you're in an Avion trailer with 5 people.
That's the tough stuff.
And everybody does everything, but they all were very happy. And on that show, it was like everybody kind of helped, and then you don't have a 24-hour guy because you're at a spot for a couple weeks, and then you have a couple days to tear down your tent, and then everyone's like, okay, we know where we're going.
Yeah.
Like,
we don't need a guy.
Phoenix. Got it.
Yep. And then we just truck it.
Yeah, and then we all like, kind of caravan together, and then we get to Phoenix or wherever, and then the spot in Phoenix, and then we set up for 2 days. So there's like a buffer time. So if Johnny No Shoes these get lost, and they can figure it out.
Yeah, Johnny No Shoes is loose as his shoes.
And I just love that circus, how they have all the Avion trailers, but really. It's hard because if you think about if you're traveling by like and they have big rigs for the actual tent, and like the rigging and all that stuff, and they have 2 horses, so they have a horse trailer.
Of course. So
they have all these things that have like hitches and stuff, and they're traveling up and down the coast. Yeah, that's windy. It's like,
oh yeah, with a hitch.
Hard.
I've only gone through on a couple windy roads, but I've only ever done it on like a car. I can't imagine driving with a hitch, not like a thing that's attached to your wheels, but a separate thing you have to account for. It's like if you're on a windy road and you only have so much space, it's like you have to be really, really good and not only maneuvering your car, but knowing how the car behind you is gonna move.
Right, all that stuff. So all of these smaller shows travel that's like similarly, where they have a couple big rigs that have all the equipment and the rigging and stuff, and then the performers and the crew's trailers. They're like living quarters basically, and then some the concessions and their merch and stuff. But the travel between is often the communication is their cell phone,
and before that, nice letters,
like little, and then pigeons.
You send little notes, with pigeons, little pidgeys.
Another friend that I spoke to that's still performing, he said that when they travel, they often will, they don't have cars again, like not a lot of people have cars. And so they stay in the bunks to save money, right? Because they can't stay in hotels. Like, who's going to do that? But when they travel town to town, there's a gray law, apparently, that if you have open communication with the person driving the big rig, because there's travel on bunks, like bunk big rigs that aren't on trains, but there's still bunk cars. Like when I went to the Cole Brothers, they had like bunk cars that hold like, I don't know how many, like 9.
So are we talking like cars with bunk beds? Or are we talking about bunk technology applied to train cars? So it's like almost like those British buses that have the double layers.
Well, it's a big rig. It's like it's a truck, right? But I think there's individual rooms in there. Almost like a honey wagon would be.
Okay.
But they're smaller, obviously. It's a big rig, so it's a truck. And then there would be rooms on either side, I believe.
Kind of like the Hogwarts train.
Yes. Yeah. But not as nice. But with beds. Yes.
But structurally
structurally, yes. There's rooms on either side, I believe, on either side, or either on one side. But I think it's probably on either side. It makes the most sense to me.
Yeah. It's the most
to balance the actual car.
I mean, with the space economy, that makes the most sense.
So with some other shows, because no U.S. circuses travel by train that I know of.
Not anymore, at least.
Not anymore, right? Because Ringling was the one. There's a gray law that you can be on the truck and have open communication with the driver. So your cell phone is the open communication, and you don't have a seatbelt, right? Because you're just free moving on this truck. It's really dangerous.
Or if he has to stop abruptly, if he sees like a deer in the middle of the road, whatever you got to start doing donuts on a dare. I mean,
yeah, or if they jackknife or anything. I mean, I don't know how safe it is regardless, really. But
I mean, if we've seen that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I'm sure it's a little kind of like that.
Yeah, I don't know which episode that is.
There's one where I forget why, but they're driving somewhere and they several of them are driving in the back of a truck. and like someone's driving the actual truck, and I think they even try cooking something in there, which they all pass out. Of course,
I know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even when you're in a car, sometimes when you stop short, it's like you have a seatbelt on, you do a little lurch sometime if something happens, whether it's your fault or not.
Yeah,
it's
so
like,
picture that, but like a semi truck that has like beds in it.
I just think you got to put mattresses on the walls and ceiling, so then you just basically you bounce house.
Yeah,
that's the only safe way.
That's a good idea.
Because nothing's bad has ever happened in a bounce house.
And surely, like, there's been accidents in travel, and especially like train wrecks. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
There's most notably, there's a train wreck in 1918, and we'll discuss it in an episode. But the Hammond Circus train wreck occurred in June 22nd, 1918, which was one of like the worst train wrecks in the U.S. And 86 people were reported to have died.
Whoa.
And another 127 were injured when the locomotive engineer fell asleep.
Oh, no. The chooch officer.
Because he was sleepy. Yeah, and ran his train into the rear of another
train?
Near Hammond, Indiana.
Oh,
so
man.
The circus train held 400 performers and roustabouts of the Hagenbeck-Wallace Circus.
Oh, Haagen-Dazs Circus.
So it wasn't a Ringling train.
After that, he's like, I'm going to auto build ice cream.
Right. But there was a Ringling accident, a train accident in 1994 in Florida.
Uh-oh.
So we'll have a whole train accident episode, but
we got to have it.
We just can't do it right now.
No, there's too much. There's too much chooch news.
Yeah, the world's on fire enough already. So
yeah, we're going to focus on the more positive or interesting chooch stuff for now.
Exactly. But I just thought that was of note. My parents told me that when they were on Circus Vargas, they didn't have a trailer, you know, and my great grandma that cooked with all the lard, she just gave them her car. And I was like, wow, that's awful nice.
Oh, really? Just like her, like, do you mean the car she like traveled with the circus in, or her like personal vehicle?
So it was my mom's grandma. So, because the circus is my dad's side.
Okay.
So my mom's grandma was like, you can have our car.
Gotcha.
Very nice.
That's very nice.
She was a great grandma.
She both literally and figuratively.
She's my great grandma, but she was an excellent grandma. I have her tattooed on my arm. She was great.
Nice.
So when they got to the circus, they only had a car. They didn't have a trailer to stay in. So the first couple weeks they stayed in hotels, which is expensive.
Oh, I bet. That's not sustainable.
And then they like eventually like borrowed against, you know, to get a trailer to stay in and then repaid it back.
Yeah.
They didn't have bunk trailers yet for Circus Vargas. So she's like, I don't know where the crew slept. I was like, huh?
So what did they do?
She's like, yeah, I don't know where they slept.
They just always came back covered in twigs and dirt, and they said, don't ask.
She's like, until they got bunk, you know, big rigs.
Yeah.
Because Circus Vargas traveled like by truck, you know, and like by car. In big rigs and stuff. She's like, until they got bunk trucks, I don't know where they slept. And I was like, huh?
A nice rock they found somewhere.
Yeah. And she's like, one of their friends that worked concession. She's like, he didn't have a trailer. I don't know where he slept. I was like, what? She's like, I think he slept with his girlfriend, but I don't know.
It's like, you just had to figure it out. If you were someone, you're like, afterward, go somewhere.
You just have to, you have to figure it out.
Go meet a beautiful stranger at a bar and hope they have a house, because that's all you can do.
Go catch some strange and hopefully you get some Z's also. Jesus. I was just like, wow, dude, that's nuts.
What a lifestyle. I can't imagine having that kind of thing where like afterwards, and not only like once you have to figure that out, but like a very regular, like, all right, this is a completely new city. Where do I sleep?
It's cold in Denver. Like, oh God.
Yeah. It's cold. It's cold in a lot of places.
No wonder people want to sleep in the tent. It's a sure thing.
It's a sure thing. Like, it's hot.
But you're not supposed to, apparently.
You got no windows in there. All that heat stays in.
Yeah. So this was interesting because I had reached out on Instagram and was like, tell me some stories from people that are on the circus. So this one guy, Daniel, who I believe lives in Iceland. So he said, he's like, our circus doesn't move. I was like,
really?
I bet it doesn't. Because like, you know, some don't move because of the locale.
It's just, you got to go there.
Yeah. So he says the first couple years they tried to travel because he's in Iceland and it just didn't work money-wise. It's like they couldn't do it.
Is Iceland huge or not? So am I because
it's not huge, but it's like not outfitted for travel.
Yeah,
you know
it
what
doesn't
I mean.
Have
it's like
the like infrastructure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And everything is super far in between, and there's probably like one road.
Yeah, and to move a lot of stuff on that is probably
Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky. And the seasons are very short for that. I mean, probably quite short. So he said that, they have a season that's very short. It's like a couple weeks but they don't travel because they can't really.
Yeah.
And there's like one circus in Iceland.
That's probably kind of nice for them, though. I mean, yeah, you don't get the travel aspect where you see,
no competition, right?
but no competition, and you get to have like a normal home experience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, yeah, he said they tried in previous years. It was too expensive. He also added that in Greenland, they import shows from Iceland and Denmark, as those are the only countries that have commercial flights there. And it's impossible to travel by car or train. So you have to fly in between towns.
You gotta fly.
In between towns. Isn't that nuts?
That's crazy. I wonder, like, how long is that flight? Like an hour?
Probably. It's probably an hour. It's probably super short, or 30 minutes even. But they also don't have the infrastructure.
That's crazy. I did that once to go to Canada, which very, very short plane ride. That was a teeny tiny
But it's probably like to San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's like that flight's nothing,
That's weird, but that's also like kind of fun to fly for that amount of time, because you don't get like tired of it.
Yeah. And as a performer, you're just like, fine, I'm not worried about.
Yeah, you're like, why not? Yeah, if you're gonna,
I don't have to deal with the other stuff.
if you're gonna foot the bill, yeah, it's all good with me.
Yeah. So I just thought that was really interesting because Iceland, Greenland, those places are very, I don't want to say not populated. There's people there, but it's like not as populated.
Not as much as here.
Yeah, they're just not as built upon.
Well, I guess it also makes sense then for it to be a static location, because then it's like you go there to go see it. You know what I mean? It's like an attraction of this town,
right?
That they have the circus,
right? Exactly, which makes sense. And Iceland's green for a couple months, and then it's still very cold. So I thought that was curious, but that makes sense. I mean, I just there's circus everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, adapt for your locale.
Yeah, so they travel by train, they travel by truck,
or they don't even travel.
They travel by plane.
Yeah, or by plane sometimes.
Yeah. So we know that Ringling Brothers stopped performing altogether in 2017, as I mentioned. But what happened to those chooch cars?
What happened?
Right?
Yeah, where are they hiding?
So there's a large number of them at a museum in Sarasota, Florida.
The Chooch Museum.
Because that was the town of their winter quarters when John Ringling was the owner. One family bought one of their sleeper cars in Florida as well. They just bought one of them for $15,000 in 2018, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, that's if you I don't know how expensive a trailer is, but I imagine that's another way to do it. It's like you buy, it's probably already outfitted in that kind of
for
way.
A train, but you don't have a rail to ride it on. You have
these are the train ones again. Yeah, they're not the ones like the mud shows.
Yeah. So this is what happened to the actual Ringling train.
Well, I mean, in a big enough field, you just place that thing down.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. So there's a number of the actual train cars in that Sarasota museum. And then this family bought one of the train sleeper cars,
and outfitted it into a cute, chic, modern home.
I mean, they should make it a hotel, but
that would be a good idea.
Yeah. But I think they just wanted it. So the North Carolina Department of Transportation purchased a number of the cars as well when the show closed in 2017. They bought 9 of them, in fact.
They're like, we need more trains. We need more chooches.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They were like, we need more chain cars.
Yeah.
So we'll just buy these for cheap. They bought 9 of them for $383,000, like all together, the lump sum.
I mean, that is, I think, I don't know if that's good or not. I'm like, is that good? I don't know. I don't know what trains are worth.
Good deal? Question mark. I think it is. From this article that I read, it says this little town of 1,300 people didn't even know the greatest show on earth was in town until Carolina Journal got a tip. This is where the Carolina Journal paper. So the NCDOT purchased the 9 rail cars back in 2017 for $383,000 for a future project. NCDOT wasn't able to store the cars in their rail facility in Raleigh. So they hid them on a state-owned stretch of track in Spring Hope, which is like an area in North Carolina. The idea was that they were going to convert these train cars, these coach cars, back to 64-seat passenger cars. So these are like sleeper cars, like the ones that that girl was in, like the 8 sleeper cars or however many, and they were going to put seats in them for people to sit in, like a normal.
Yeah, make it like a more conventional train.
Yeah, like our trains, like our Metrolink train. They purchased 7 residential cars, so those are the coach cars that the circus people would stay in, 1 animal car, and 1 shop car. So that makes up the 9 cars that they got. So according to the North Carolina Observer, they bought the cars shortly after the final performance, and they paid that sum, $383,000. And then they plan to have the cars refurbished and used on the Piedmont rail. This passenger train makes 3 round trips a day between Raleigh and Charlotte. So it's like the Metrolink, kind of, I don't know how many times their Metrolink goes, but it's like a commuter train. But then the NCDOT received a $77 million federal grant.
Whoa.
That allowed it to buy 13 new rail cars.
Like, we need more chooches. Here is the cash.
So they bought new cars. So they're like, we don't need to refurbish these cars.
We don't even need your old fart cars. We got fresh cars. No farts in them.
No farts. No farts. No farts.
Not yet, anyway.
So they're like, we're reevaluating, according to the director of the Department of Transportation in North Carolina, Jason Orthner.
The chooch director, of course.
It forced them to reevaluate what they're going to do with the circus train.
Yeah, they're like, well, now we don't need them for what we were going to do with them, so.
Pretty much, yeah. And they also said they'd never publicized its purchase, which, I'm sure someone told, my God.
Yeah, somebody leaked the thing. We just bought a bunch of chooch cars.
And they couldn't store it in their train yard, so they kept it on this little stretch
someone's backyard. It was just like, Nancy, we got a bunch of chooches in the back now.
Yeah, there's this old stretch of rail in Nash County, and that's where they still is, like this area of Spring Hope, right, in Nash County.
Oh, they're still there?
They're still there. It's very rural and very hard to get to, apparently. It's like 2 miles off the street. It's like super hard to get to.
So they probably were like, it was such a hassle getting those chooches out there. Let's just leave them
right?
there.
I don't know how they got there initially.
Those chooches ain't hurting nobody.
There was someone with like a little push, like a seesaw thing. These 2 guys just trying to push it on the rail. Oh my gosh, from like a cartoon. So the purchase of the 13 new cars that they got from
that grant money. Mm-hmm.
They used that federal grant money to get the new cars, means that the circus cars will probably not join their Piedmont fleet of train cars overall for their Department of Transportation. They said that they're going to spend the rest of the year, this is 2020, reevaluating the condition of its existing cars. Again, this is from the Department of Transportation, so they're probably just like, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the money.
He's like, we don't know.
The $77 million.
Yeah. What do we do?
In the meantime, the circus train cars remained in that stretch of Nash County on that rail, in that hidden freaking spot, because the state doesn't have room for them in its yard.
They should do something cool with it. I mean, you got all those things there. Like, link them up. Make it like a museum or a diner or just like something. I don't know. You could do something cool with that. Make it a tourist deal.
I know. Well, and they are like, we don't think we'll have trouble finding a buyer to, sell to.
What? But they just don't feel like doing it yet? Just do one of those like things you do on Craigslist. It's like, it's this much money, but you got to come get it.
So I was reading further, and December 28th, they posted that these are up for auction.
Oh, we could get them.
So they started to be, you could, the article basically was like, these 9 railroad cars are up for auction. You can go see them in this rural area that's like 2 miles off the beaten path.
If you can find it, we'll provide a treasure map with an X, and you have to get there.
Dude, right? It's like, they're like, you can go see them for yourself. They're really hard to get to.
But trust us, they're there. Ask the local.
Yeah, they're like super hard to get to. You'll probably fall and slip. Like, it's like not for...
There's no lighting and it's dark, so go during the day.
It's like super, super treacherous to like... it's super treacherous to actually get to where they're at. I'm going to show you these pictures.
It's like a steep, muddy hill. Like, what we have to do to get there?
Well, it's like an old train track that...
There's a moat.
Okay, there's one.
Let's see what we got here.
But it's like in the brush, basically.
Oh, yeah. You got to wonder, though, where did this line go? It's like, because this train line was built somewhere that they put these on. Like, how did they get here?
Yeah. And they're all like, this is just the inside of one of them. Like they're really decrepit, and it's like
I like that this had to be taken by someone peeking in.
yeah, like you can't.
It's the only way.
Find a better picture.
I mean, they could do something cool with these if they could just move them somewhere.
Right.
Would you imagine they got them here somehow, like there's got to be a way to get them back to a regularly used area. The description is just, you can't find it.
Yeah, but they were like, you can go look at it if you want to. And if you can find it, you can go look at them.
They're like, look, if you can find them, they're yours. We can't get there.
But this gentleman was like, I went to walk to it, find it myself. And like, he was like, it took me a long time and it was really hard to get to. And it's a couple miles.
I went to find it and I died.
Yeah. He was like, it was a couple miles. And that's why he's like peeking in because he like couldn't see in.
Yeah.
And, like,
who knows what's in there now? Could be ghosts.
Yeah. And another article was like, it's treacherous. There's a lot of hills. There's a lot of brush you have to cut through.
There's a lot of very rude snakes that live there.
Yeah. Have you ever been to North Carolina?
No.
It's very rural. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of
stretches where you just like would have to walk.
Yeah. It's like, that's not the forest, but it's like, it's just rural countryside.
What also a weird thing to just be like walking across like through the woods or something like, and you just like, oh, yeah. there's a bunch of train cars right here.
Right. And they're all spray painted over. I mean, obviously people have been visiting it and spray painting it and stuff. And so the auction site that it's on lists a minimum bid of $45,000 for each circus train cars, except for the storage car that's filled with the various hand shop tools, which was the shop car. And that opening bid's $55,000. The minimum for all 9 cars is $415,000, which isn't bad. And so the auction started January 1st.
Is it still ongoing?
Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone's bid anything.
We could. Okay, so here's the thing. Patreon subscribers, if we hit our 45,000 threshold, we can buy this train, but then we're also going to need a little more money than that so that Kelly and I can go start physically training to push these cars somewhere because there's no way to get a vehicle out there. So we just have to go out and push it somewhere.
I told my mom and she's like, how much are they? And I was like, you're not buying this.
Yeah, you can't. What are you going to do? They're in North Carolina. Like you can't even.
My grandpa's from there, my grandfather. And so I was like, well, let's just unload all of his memorabilia and put it in one of those. And then we'll make a museum. It's easy.
Just throw them on that.
It's like a rave, and you have to like.
Be cool. Charge ticket prices, make that money back, no time.
Here's a map to the rave.
Yeah, that's the only way to find it.
And it's a circus museum. It'd be fun.
It would be.
It'd be like a circus adventure museum. That's a patented idea.
And then we write a movie called Circus Adventure Museum to cover the cost of all this too.
That's our.
I mean, it is an idea, money making idea that just keeps making money. Oh my god,
Hot Dog Millionaire.
We gotta get it. Hot Dog Millionaire is saying this is the way to be a millionaire. You don't even need a hot dog. Although we should sell hot dogs at the museum. Because also hot dogs are the most train-like food.
Oh, they really are.
Because they come in links.
This is what this article says from the WITN.com article where it says how much they're auctioning for, and it says minimum for all 9 cars is $415,000 or $32,000 more than the state paid for them.
They're very blatant with how much money they want to make off this.
That's the same thing. It's like that's literally the same cost.
That's how they make you think you're getting a deal.
Right? It's like that is $415,000.
That's the exact amount, sir. And I'm like, that's
so stupid.
The illusion of options.
So that's our chooch app, mostly chooches.
Chooch app. And maybe our chooch future.
Yeah, and maybe our chooch future. You're right.
If you guys want to pay us enough, if we as a community come
a
together.
Chooch community.
A chooch community, we too can buy this and then need more money to do something with it. So maybe once we get to $1 million in Patreon money, then we buy the thing and turn it into a museum or a diner or both.
I think it'd be all of those. It could be like a hotel, museum, diner.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because we got 9 cars to work with, so each car could be a different thing. So, okay. Here's what we do. One cart is like an Airbnb house. You rent time for the experience.
Right.
Okay. And you're paying for not just this house to stay in, but then all the 8 other cars are attractions you get to go throughout the days. You get one of them is like a diner style thing, and you can have people who work there. They come into work a day before the people
like it.
that come in, and they make food for them. And it's like you go there anytime. It's all bundled in, so that you just go in, you ask them what you want, the guy or gal makes it for you. You go to the next cart, there's a museum, there's an old Circus museum. You go to the next cart, there's hot tub in it. Like, you just keep going. One of them is like a home theater in one of them, and you just get like this really cool experience for a hefty but reasonable price.
Hefty but reasonable.
But reasonable. As long as you throw reasonable in there, I can charge anything.
Yeah,
that I want.
10 grand an experience.
It's hefty, but it's reasonable heft.
Yeah, reasonable heft.
You're basically getting 9 houses, so you're gonna pay 9 times the regular Airbnb price.
Yeah, and all they have to do is walk 2 miles.
Easy.
Follow the train tracks there.
You're gonna get your steps in and have a great vacation.
And I don't know where a nearby restaurant is because we feed you.
You don't need it. Also, one whole train car is a bathroom because look,
because we don't have one.
Because the first one doesn't have them, so we're gonna have to turn one of them completely into a bathroom.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be really tricky because it's not attached to anything.
Yeah, and we can't dump it anywhere.
We can't dump it anywhere, so we got a really long, it's got to all be downhill because of gravity pipe system that goes out and down a big hill, and that's where all the detritus goes. But we're gonna make it work.
We're gonna make it work.
We're gonna make it work because that's our $1 million Patreon subscriber goal.
I'm gonna tell you this though: $415,000 for 9 train cars is cheaper than any fucking 2-bedroom house that anyone could buy in LA. Like miles cheaper.
I mean, it's location, and this one is in a treacherous location.
Yeah, it's 2 miles in North Carolina's rural fucking like backwoods
that you can't find on a GPS. You need a treasure map to get to.
Yeah,
so
which is part of the fun.
But hey, look, and also this is also for any savvy investors out there. If you want to have a home, but it's just too expensive, buy these. Just scoop these up, and maybe you got a whole project ahead of you. But you can turn them into something cool.
It seems like a summer camp waiting to happen. Really.
There's so many cool things you could do with it.
Really? I mean, really,
we just need some brave heroes to go and scoop them up. We could even have one whole train car that does fries.
And one that does pies.
Yeah, we got a dessert cart.
Oh, man. I want it. I want one of these.
We got a lot of good ideas. And I mean, these ideas could become a reality if you guys give us $1 million.
We only need 400,000. We'll cover the 15.
400,000 to buy it, and then all the rest goes into renovation.
That's true. Okay, good point. We need $1 million.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, because ideally, and this is why we need the $1 million. Ideally, we renovate the outside to be hot dog shaped, which is going to take a little bit of extra finessing, but I think it'll be worth it for the visual.
I like it. We'll have to chip away to make it round.
Yes,
sure.
We chip away. We add a little bit. Whatever we got to do, and then we do it so like. We do a hot dog shape, and then underneath it, you know how like hot dogs, if you go to like a festival or an outdoor event, they'll come in almost like a little paper long holder. We have them in that, and that's got the white red stripe for the circus because we gotta give homage to where it came from.
Of course. All right. That's a good plan.
We got a lot of good ideas, folks. Just give us $1 million.
The literal hot dog million that we need.
It is. This is the hot dog million. If you guys want to be part of hot dog million history, please give us $1 million.
So that's Chooches.
Chooches.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Also, thank you, Herbert, for subscribing to our Patreon.
Herb, we love you.
You're great. And we can't wait to shower you with cool stuff in our Patreon.
We got a lot of cool ideas in the pipeline. So just to sit tight, they're on their way.
Yeah, and if you guys want to join our Patreon, just go to Patreon backslash. I don't know, slash.
It's one of the slashes.
Yeah, slashes, Circus Stories, and there we are.
We already got a great interview up there. Go check that out. We got the free 10-minute version, so you can get a little sample, a little taste. But there's a lot more where that came from.
Yeah. So thanks as always for listening. And you can check our Instagram for any images that we talked about today.
There's a lot of cool ones, especially if you like trains. For those train heads out there.
Yeah, especially. And our Instagram is at circus.stories. And if you have any fun circus facts or fun circus stories of your own, feel free to send those to circusstoriespodcast@gmail.com.
We love community involvement.
Please. And then, of course, please definitely subscribe and rate and tell your friends. That helps a bunch. But most importantly,
ladies, gentlemen,
please.
You gotta
check your boilers, man.
Check your boilers.
You gotta check your boilers.
It's safety first.
It always is.
Mm-hmm. And if you want a hot shower, I mean, it's not even an option.
It's not even an option. It just isn't. So be safe out there. Take care of each other. And we'll see you down the road, friends.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Oh, I'm going away. See you later. Oh, no. Oh, what's this? Oh, nothing. It's just me saying goodbye. Bye-bye. Oh, bye. Can you even hear me anymore?
I love it.